Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication, child development all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about how to parent a child with oppositional defiant disorder. In this video, we're going to spend some time talking about oppositional defiant disorder, which is usually referred to as ODD. We're also going to spend some time discussing key things that you can do to help your child find a lot more peace and maybe help them see other ways to get their point across to you besides going straight to oppositional defiant tendencies. Oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, can be very frustrating. I think that there are a lot of parents who think their child has oppositional defiant disorder because their child is disrespectful to them or seems defiant to them. One thing you need to ask yourself though is my child defiant and disrespectful to everyone? If your child is defiant and disrespectful to everyone, then you have to ask yourself another question. Has my child had the proper training to learn respect? Do they know skills and how to communicate with other people, and they still seem to always be oppositional and defiant to everyone? Do they even want other people to be respectful and kind to them, but they are still oppositional defiant to everyone else? Well, then they might have oppositional defiant disorder. There are some characteristics of the disorder. I'm going to talk about those now just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, because some parents like to kind of diagnose their children themselves and they get worried about certain things and jump to conclusions. Sometimes children are moody. Sometimes chemically they're a little off. Maybe they get hungry and then they get moody then. Sometimes they're kind to a teacher, or they'll follow instructions from one parent but not from another. Then they're probably not oppositional defiant. They might be oppositional in the moment. They might be expressing defiance, but they probably don't have oppositional defiant disorder. When a person has oppositional defiant disorder, there are some key characteristics. I'm going to go through this quickly because I'm assuming, if you're looking at this video, that you already likely know what oppositional defiant disorder is, and I don't want to bore you. However, I do know there are some people who are just thinking, that sounds like maybe what I'm dealing with. And for those people, I want to just make sure that I clear this up a little bit, and then we'll get to the nuts and bolts about what to do. If you subscribe to this channel, you know I have a lot to share about skills and strategies for dealing with troubled children, because I spent many years doing therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens. I worked with a lot of children who had ODD and other children who had other things like ADHD, OCD, RAD, FAS, kleptomania, compulsive lying, sensory issues, spectrum issues. There were all kinds of things that I was helping youth with as they were learning how to improve their functioning, their communications, their relationships as they were living in my treatment home. Anyway, I know what I'm talking about here, so let's just get right down to what does it mean when a person truly has ODD. A lot of people want to know why their child has ODD. We don't exactly know why. We don't know if it's something that is just a chemical difference in the brain. I mean, clearly there's something different that's going on in the processing. A child who truly has ODD would be considered non-neurotypical because something is firing differently in the brain, but also we don't know if it's just that they have a hard time expressing themselves, because that could be another thing. They have feelings, they have thoughts, they don't know how to express them well, or they find difficulty being able to self-analyze and be able to express what it is that's going on within themselves. So what does a person with ODD do? Well, they often lose their temper. That's one of the biggest things that they do. But they also deliberately, or it seems like deliberately, try to annoy people. They also get annoyed very easily. So there's this feeling of annoyance and frustration. They like to try to control what's going on around them. At least everyone who's around them feels like they're being controlled. But usually the person who has ODD actually feels like they are out of control most of the time. And they're looking for control, which is why they're trying to tell everybody else what to do. So oftentimes they look like they're seeking negative attention because technically they are seeking negative attention. They're just oftentimes doing it for their own feelings of security instead of to try to just get attention from another person and to like make a splash on the scene, like some people might do when they're seeking attention. Oftentimes people with ODD are angry and frustrated. They'll fight back about very little tiny things. They don't want to comply with anything. If you request something and it wasn't their idea, they will not do it. In fact, many times, even if they know it's the right thing to do, even if they want to do it, just because you told them to do it, they are not going to do it. They may even choose to hurt themselves just for a point of strategy. Like, I'm going to hurt myself just to prove that I am not going to do what you say. They will go to that level sometimes just to be oppositional. They seem very rebellious sometimes. It's hard to get through to them. It's hard for a person working with an ODD person to feel like they get it. And I think sometimes people with ODD have a hard time following the line of logic that everybody else is following. They just are seeing things in a different, emotional, annoyed, frustrated way. And every single thing that gets told to them, they process it emotionally instead of logically. Now, sometimes people who have ODD are very smart people. They can do a lot of logical processing and reasoning, but when it comes to taking responsibility for their own behaviors or analyzing themselves, that's where they put up the big wall and everything becomes emotional. So we don't know how much of this is trained, how much of this is genetic, how much of it is environmental. We don't know. But there are some people who struggle with ODD. So what do we do about that? That's what we need to talk about. So if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I talk about skills a lot, and no different on this video. I want to make sure that we spend some time talking about some key skills that can help people who are struggling to process through their ODD. Now, everything I teach here on this channel relates to the principle of self-government, so we do need to know what self-government is. Self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So that means that you determine what direction you want to do, what goal you have for yourself, for your relationships, for your behavior, for your outcomes, and then you keep yourself on track with that. Now, the oppositional defiant person does have a goal. Just so you know. It seems like they don't. It seems like they're just pushing back all the time. But they do have a goal. The goal is control. I want to maintain control of my environment, of what happens to me. I want to choose. So since we know that about an oppositional defiant person, then we've got to make sure that we recognize the more heavy-handed we get, the worse it gets for us and for them. Their behaviors increase as we become less calm and less understanding. We have to make sure that we are not being out of control ourselves. The number one thing that you can do is practice calmness. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a free gift that I have for you that will help you with your calmness as you are working with a child who may have ODD or just a child who's oppositional defiant, because honestly, all the skills that I'm going to be sharing can relate to any child, developmentally normal children as well as children who may be non-neurotypical. Just so you know, everything here on this channel is for every type of child because they're principles and skills that work for everyone. And I learned that doing the therapeutic treatment care. But the calmness is key and it starts with you. So if you start to take things personally, get a little frustrated or annoyed, start going out of control, that is going to egg on the person power struggling with you. Without a doubt, if you start showing that you're getting frustrated, flustered, angry, annoyed, they sense that and they know they're winning an argument. They crave the power struggle. They will continue the power struggle until they have worn you completely down or until you give them enough fight that they can't fully fight back yet. Emphasis on yet, because the older they get, the stronger they get, the more they start fighting. Okay? You want to make sure that you maintain calmness and that you have a plan. So I'd like to share with you some of my plan. So I teach self-government. My website is teachingselfgovernment.com. On that website, I've got lots of trainings. I've got courses and things where people can learn how to govern themselves and how to help their children learn self-government too. And people from all over the world with children who are non-neurotypical and children who are very, very typical have used the skills and principles of self-government to help their child feel more calm, comfortable, understood, and to improve the family communications without having to go to a power struggle. So since we know a power struggle does not help a child with ODD, we know we have to be calm and we have to teach the child exactly how we will talk to them so that it's predictable. So everything that I teach is predictable. I teach 4 basic skills of self-government. Those 4 basic skills are taught in 4 children's books. They are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. These 4 basic skills are actually adult skills. Every adult needs to learn them to be developmentally healthy, but sometimes they don't. We all know adults who don't know how to disagree appropriately or accept criticism from somebody, right? But if they can learn them when they're young, all the better. So a child who's oppositional defiant is not going to want to follow instructions, accept a no answer or criticism, or accept a consequence. And if you tell them, hey, I'll listen to you if you disagree appropriately, they're not going to want to disagree appropriately either. So what do? Well, you have to have some other skills in place to help correct them and steer them toward calmness. You have to develop a calm plan, and you have to help them see that it's their choice, it's their idea. That's so important. If you lay the whole program out ahead of time, you teach them the 4 skills of self-government and the 5 teaching styles that you will be using to help them get back to a place of calmness every time, and you consistently follow through every time, and you explain that they get to choose. You even show them the TSG choices map, which I have at teachingselfgovernment.com. You help them see it's going to happen the same way every time. It doesn't matter how many times you push against this. You can't win this piece of paper that's a map. You can't win these cue cards that help me know what to say every time. You can't win the principles of self-government because they're principles. They're bigger than any person. So what you have to do is you have to see who the fight you're having. It's not between you and me. It's between you and yourself. You have a parent counseling session with your child. You help them learn the skills, prepare them to see the battle that they're having as a battle that's happening on the inside of them instead of a battle that's happening with you. And then you help them by asking them the right questions and giving them the right prompts and scripts at the time when they're starting to go out of control. And you consistently do that. If you say the same words every time and you're predictable, they can't fight against you as much, and they recognize that they really aren't fighting you. They are fighting themselves. Now, when you're working with a child who has oppositional defiant disorder, make sure they get to choose lots of things throughout the day. They can choose what they want for their snack. Maybe you have certain snacks that they can pick. They get to choose what they want to do with their free time. They get to choose which friend to call. They get to choose how long they want that chore to take. Do you want that chore to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes? It's up to you. You choose. You can do it as fast as you want, right? Let them know where their choices are. Use the word choices a lot and choose a lot. When they have an opportunity to be corrected, which means you get the chance to do a correction for them, use the word choose and the word earn so that they see they chose, they earned. It wasn't something that you did to them. Now, a little disclaimer about children who have ODD, and that is that their learning curve is a lot steeper than your developmentally neurotypical child. When they are non-neurotypical, we have to experience that they will push hard for a long time, and then they'll plateau and go, okay, I see, this skill does help me, okay. And then they push hard again, and then, okay, this helped me. It's definitely, instead of just an upward slope, it's a ladder, and we take a break and we don't get there yet. And so you have to have patience. Don't expect any skill or anything you do for your child with ODD to work immediately. It's the consistency that's going to pay off. They need repetition, a lot of it. And it's going to take calmness on your part. So that brings me to my free gift about calmness. So I have a Calm Parenting Toolkit on my website. There is a link to it below this video in the description section. And the link says teachselfgov.com/toolkit. If you click on the link to that video now, you can have that Calm Parenting Toolkit for free. It will give you 10 tools that you can use to help yourself and your children stay calm. It will not teach everything about self-government. It's an introductory course, but that little mini course with those 10 tools should be pretty life-changing and give you a lot to work on. Then you'll be ready to learn all the other skills of self-government that will help your child, whether they have ODD or they're just a little strong-willed, be able to choose to get back into calmness and control and fix that bond with you. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.